I'm attacking my scraps. And that bin I just showed you was overflowing this morning at 5 o'clock, filled with scraps of every shape, size imaginable, every color and theme imaginable. I'm Angela Davis, and I'm the 4am Quilter, where I share, care, and create with you. Join me as I show you my process and reevaluate how I handle my scraps so that you can learn from my bad habit. Well, the first thing I did was this morning, I took the bin in my living room and I just sorted through them. Oh, look, flannel. Put that with the flannel. What is this? This is, I have no idea what this is. Well, now it's a strip. Oh, squares. Here's a square. This could be the center of a log cabin. And I just did random piles on my couch where I sorted them according to, is it a strip or is it some type of a pre-cut square or rectangle? Some type of a pre-cut shape. Here's a pre-cut strip. See this, Angela? This could have already been organized if I developed a good habit. And then I started another pile as I started going through the bin of varying fabrics that would look good in a crazy quilt. And then I started another pile as I was digging deeper in my bin of what I call yardage, meaning these were pieces and parts of fabric that I would consider to be a half a yard to whatever size I had in there that I found in my bin, and I found quite a bit. Look at this. Another piece of nice white muslin. This is yardage. Look at that. This is muslin, beige muslin. Put that over there. Ooh. A little more than half a yard. I considered that the yardage pile. So I had a pile for strips. I had a pile for pre-cut sizes, meaning they were already pre-cut into a square or a rectangle or some type of a shape. I started a pile for fabric that would look appropriate in a crazy quilt. What's this? This is, look at that piece. That is going in. I'm gonna have to do a separate box for collecting fabric for crazy quilt. Ooh, look at that. I'll put that with my fabric for crazy quilt. And I also had a denim flannel pile. So what I've done is I emptied out, I would say 90% of the bin. What is left in there are little tiny itsy bitsy pieces that you could not possibly put into a quilt. I mean, little tiny shreds of pieces. I'm not throwing those away. I'm going to leave them in the bin, and I'm going to label that bin scraps to be used for stuffing, or maybe I'll label it stuffing scraps. These are the type of scraps I'm talking about. You can't possibly do anything with them, but you can use them as stuffing for pillows, stuffed animals. But what I need to do in the future is, and I want to develop this good habit now, is I need to take a bin, either a plastic bin or a shoebox like this that has the nice lid. And when I'm finished cutting strips for a project, I need to lay them nicely into a smaller bin so that when I'm ready to go and pull out my scraps of strips, I already have them in a nice little box and they're already pre-cut. So this is a lesson in good habits, or starting new good habits. A lot of these in this bin are strips or pre-cut shapes. And what I should have done, like I said, I have to start it now, like right now. If I have extra strips left over from a project, I have to get in the habit of having a bin or a basket ready right beside me where I keep similar pre-cut strips and similar pre-cut shapes so that they're much more organized and not just thrown into a bin. So that's the first thing. Keep a small shoebox or a little plastic container or basket next to your sewing table. And as you're cutting for a project, whatever's left over goes inside that box and label it. Just say 2.5-inch strips or 3-inch strips or 5.5-inch squares so that you know what it is in the future. Another thing that you want to consider when organizing your scraps is color. Do you want to organize them by color or do you want to organize them by style? So you can organize them by color, but they're all different style, or you can organize them by style. Is this traditional fabric? Is it batiks? Is it contemporary? Or do you want to label it all by one particular designer? Or you can just label lights and darks. These are light colored fabrics. These are dark colored fabrics. I think what I'm going to do in the future is I'm going to have a light color basket and a dark color basket so that as I'm cutting, I have those separate, because one of the easiest ways to create a scrap quilt is just by separating your lights and darks. Log cabins are done that way. Rail fences are done that way. You can do 9 patches that way. So many blocks. Your basic design element is lights and darks. So that's the easiest way to categorize your scraps. The third thing you want to think about when organizing your scraps is what size is the cut. So for example, I have a pile over here where that particular cut is the whole width of the fabric, okay? And then I have some cuts here that are maybe half cuts. So these might be off cuts. So this might be left over from maybe in that quilt I just needed an extra 20 inches, not the full 40 inches. Or maybe I trimmed off the excess of a binding. Or maybe I trimmed off the excess of a backing and then I subcut that into separate strips. So this pile I would consider off-cut strips. So they're not a full width of fabric. The other pile I have here on my table is I have some pre-cut squares that I did several years ago. These are all 5.5 inches that I pre-cut myself. And I pre-cut them with the intention of making nice big 9 patches, or 4 patches rather. I never got around to it. You know, sometimes I start something and I don't finish it, and that's okay. But the point is they're already pre-cut, they're already 5.5 inches, so I'm going to separate those into their own box. The other thing that I want to do is that will work for me is I want to do offcuts. Like they're not necessarily half the width as in this pile, but they're short cuts. Like this would be, what, 12 inches? So for me, what I would do is I would have a separate box for maybe 12 inches or smaller. And these particular type of strips are wonderful for when you're, again, when you're doing rail fences, log cabins, 9 patches, that sort of thing. And then we have the odd shapes. You were cutting something and you've got like a weird shape. Here's another offcut. So these odd shapes, these are great for when you're making a crazy quilt block, or if you're making an unconventional quilt and you need something that maybe is a not ordinary shape. The other thing that I want to discuss in reviewing and reevaluating how I store my scraps and how I manage my scraps is think about what kind of piecing do you do? Do you work primarily in strips and squares? So you want to organize your scraps into your needs. Do you do a lot of unconventional quilting? You may love those offcuts and you may want to keep them the shape that they are because you might use them in another quilt. You might use them in a crazy quilt. You might use them in an off-center strippy quilt where not each one is the same size. Think about the type of quilting and piecing that you do. So that's the other thing. Think about the type of quilter that you are when you're organizing your scraps. So consider the type of quilts that you make and the type of quilting that you do, the type of piecing that you do. Organize as you go. So this is a very good evaluation for me to reevaluate how I organize myself and how I do my quilting and how I do my projects. If I keep myself more organized, I can be a lot more streamlined in what I choose to do. And I save time. And let's face it, our time is very valuable to us. I know mine is. You know, we all get pulled into so many different directions in life. It's all my fault. So, note to self, this video will act as a reminder to change my ways and my bad habit. So, with that being said, I still have about a half a bin to go of ironing. So again, if I had taken the time to organize my scraps as I was working on projects, all I would have to do is open up that box. There's my nice flat squares. There's my nice flat strips ready to be sewn. I hope you've learned some lessons from me, mistakes and my bad habits. Enjoy your sewing. Enjoy your quilting. I'm Angela Davis and I'm the 4am Quilter. Thank you for joining me today. You know what to do. Like and subscribe. Have a great week.